Ever wonder why it feels like you're running on a treadmill, working harder just to stay in the same place financially? You save, you invest, but the goalposts of true wealth seem to keep moving further away. The reason isn't your lack of effort. It's a hidden mechanism, a silent force reshaping our economic world. This is the story of the invisible tax, a tax levied not on your income, but on your very savings, driven by the ebb and flow of global liquidity. For decades, we were taught that a company's earnings and economic growth were the main drivers of asset prices. But in today's world, that's only a small part of the picture. The real puppet master is global liquidity, the total amount of credit and cash sloshing around the financial system. When central banks open the floodgates, asset prices rise. When they turn off the taps, markets fall. This isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature. The world is drowning in debt, and the only way to manage this colossal burden is to systematically devalue the currency you hold. This intentional debasement is the invisible tax. Even when official inflation numbers seem low, the relentless expansion of central bank balance sheets means your purchasing power is being silently eroded. Your savings are being mathematically outpaced, a silent transfer of wealth from your pocket to indebted governments and large institutions. This process isn't random. It follows a predictable rhythm, a global credit pulse that beats approximately every 65 months. This cycle dictates the booms and busts that create massive market volatility. Think back to the enormous stimulus measures of 2025. That unprecedented injection of cash was designed to prop up the system, but it inevitably led to the reinflation phase we are experiencing in early 2026. Prices are climbing again, not just for goods, but for assets. Herein lies the trap for the average person. Lured in by rising prices and positive headlines, most retail investors buy near the peak of the liquidity cycle. Then, as central banks are forced to tighten and drain liquidity to combat the inflation they created, markets correct. The retail investor, caught by surprise, often sells in a panic, locking in losses. They have effectively just paid the invisible tax, transferring their wealth to the institutional players who understand and ride these waves. In this new paradigm, the old rules of investing no longer apply. The classic 60/40ths portfolio, once the bedrock of retirement planning, is failing its primary purpose: to protect wealth. In a world of coordinated monetary expansion, both stocks and bonds can fall together when liquidity is withdrawn. This strategy is no longer a safe haven. Just look at the data. Compare the stagnant growth of average wages over the past decade to the parabolic rise of what we call hard assets. High-end real estate in prime global cities, rare art, and scarce digital commodities haven't just kept pace. They've exploded in value. Why? Because they are finite. They cannot be printed into existence. Holding excess cash becomes one of the riskiest propositions. In this high-velocity financial environment, the value of currency is being deliberately sacrificed to prevent sovereign defaults. Your cash is melting like an ice cube on a hot summer day, so how do you escape this trap? The key isn't to fight the tide, but to learn how to surf it. You must learn to front-run the next liquidity wave. This begins with identifying asset classes that act as liquidity sponges. These are assets that absorb the vast amounts of excess capital injected by central banks. Rather than watching lagging indicators like inflation reports, the smart money tracks leading indicators. One of the most powerful is cross-border capital flows. By monitoring where large pools of capital are moving across the globe, you can get a powerful signal for where the next asset price pump will occur. With the next easing cycle scheduled to begin in the latter half of this year, the time to position is now. It's about finding asymmetrical bets investments where the potential upside far outweighs the downside before the mainstream crowd even knows the game has started. Ultimately, this requires a fundamental shift in mindset. Stop chasing short-term gains and start thinking in terms of maintaining your percentage of total global wealth. If the total supply of money doubles, but your net worth only grows by 50%, you have become poorer, not richer. You must build a self-sustaining wealth fortress. This means diversifying not just across asset classes, but across jurisdictions. As governments become more desperate for revenue, localized wealth taxes and capital controls become a very real threat. Spreading your assets globally makes you less vulnerable to the whims of any single government. Finally, you need a disciplined roadmap for rebalancing. This isn't about market timing in the traditional sense. It's about systematically harvesting gains during the peaks of the liquidity cycle and reallocating that capital into undervalued assets or holding it in protected forms ready for the next downturn. This ensures your long-term survival and allows you to compound your wealth through these cycles instead of being consumed by them. The invisible tax is real, but it is not unavoidable. By understanding the rules of this new game, you can turn the greatest challenge to your wealth into your greatest opportunity. Thank you for watching.